Can I welcome everyone to the first of two online events for our members, our members, to share their thoughts on some of the business of our AGM coming up on Saturday, the 18th of May in Manchester. My name is John Boyle. I've served on the Members' Council for a number of years and currently am a member of the Senate. Those on the Council have been elected by the members, and indeed there is an election going on right now for approximately a third of the Council. I do need to let you know that this event is recorded, so if you don't want to appear on the video, please do keep your camera off. That won't stop you from making a contribution throughout the meeting. This is the second time we are running these events, and we hope to deliver a lot more in future. They are part of a wider initiative to celebrate our cooperative difference, our member democracy, and offering members more ways to engage with our board, council leaders and one another during our AGM period to really get an understanding of how our motions can help influence how we do business. Today we're covering three themes on our 2024 proposed motions: member prices on healthy products, ingredients and household basics, our co-op DNA, and the third motion, tackling the root causes of retail crime. Now, we know there may be other subjects that you'd like us to discuss at this event, but we are using this opportunity to discuss these important areas. So if you feel you need to ask about other related matters about your co-op, we'd love you to put your suggestions in the chat, including on how we can improve on these events as we go along. After the event, you will also get a link to a feedback form roughly by the end of the week, and we want you to respond there about this event and other suggestions that you may have for events that engage our members more. We want to ensure these events are useful to you. And don't forget, if you attend the AGM in person or online, you may be able to raise your suggestions in that meeting. We have colleagues from your council, board and executive here this evening to help with this evening's meeting and to answer questions in the chat. The process of this will be, we will describe the motions one by one. A council member will introduce the motion and will then hand over to a member of our group board who will talk about their official board response to the motion, and the official response will appear also in the chat. I will then invite you all to have a discussion for 20 minutes. So it'll be over to you. We want to hear your thoughts, your views, and to have a discussion about what you think about the motion under discussion. After all, it is your co-op. My role will be to encourage as many questions as practical, so please be brief. We also have a question we're exploring under each motion we'd like your input on. Those of you who booked for the event will have received the question in advance, and we hope you may be able to respond to those questions in your contributions. After the first discussion, we will move on to the next motion and repeat, and then we'll go to the third. Please note, we are only going to discuss these three motion themes, so please stay on topic. And I would like at the end to say a few things about the attendees from Council, the board and our executive. But what I'd like to do now is just to change my screen so that I get the right script. And I'd like to hand over to Liam Forsyth, who's a colleague of mine on the Council, to introduce the first motion. And then Liam will hand over to our board director, Margaret Casely-Hayford, to cover the board's response.
Good evening, everybody. As John said, my name's Liam. I'm originally from Northumberland, so a fellow Northeasterner with John, but I'm now living in Belfast. I was previously fortunate enough to work for the co-op following what was probably initially kind of an unknown family tradition. My dad worked for the funeral care business, and both of my nanners worked within the large store estate, one on the meat counter, another one as a seamstress. So I'm really, really passionate cooperator. But less about me. Tonight, I'm really grateful to bring forward this motion on behalf of the National Members Council. As a council, we've listened, and I know there'll be a number of members on tonight who took part in the Member Priorities Survey back in January. And this has definitely shaped our work as a council, as of course we've discussed at length the areas that matter most to our members. I'm therefore pleased to bring forward our motion on the importance of member prices, covering both essential products but also promoting healthy living choices. As many of you will know, our co-op has an incredibly proud history of providing access to affordable, quality products and foods, and we believe that this motion is following in this tradition, especially within the context of the continuing cost of living pressures that we and our members are facing right across the UK. I'm really proud as well that our co-op has an equally strong track record in leading the way where others follow. And we believe that our co-op can continue to be pioneering by promoting healthy alternatives to products considered high in fat, salt and sugar. I should really get better at that. I say HFSS a lot at work. But also something I'm particularly passionate about, and that's access to quality household basics as well as personal care products. So in line with our values and principles that we all hold dearly as cooperators, we're asking the board to ensure that our co-op invests in providing access and support, of course via our member pricing model, to both healthy products and ingredients, but also everyday essentials such as personal care items and household basics. So therefore, I'd like to put forward this motion for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Liam. And what I'd like to do now is to invite Margaret Casely-Hayford to just put across the views from the board. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you very much indeed. So yes, I'm Margaret Casely-Hayford and I'm a member nominated director on the board, which basically means that I'm an elected director, and I really hold that incredibly dear because it means that my key role is to listen to the members, and to that I do through both the council and through events like this, in which you actually join in and give us your views directly. So thank you to all of you who have decided not to go out in the sunshine but to be with us this evening. So the board's view is that we obviously would like everybody to eat healthily because the implications of that for each of us individually and our society generally in terms of reducing the pressure on the health service, improving children's well-being in schools is really high. Having said that, we don't want to compel people. So what we try to do is to make sure that through our pricing, we encourage and support our members to be able to afford to eat well and to eat healthily. That has taken a number of different routes. So, for example, we have keenly priced fruit and vegetables. We have looked at the meal deals, and that's actually been quite important because the meal deals have been criticised in the past for not being as healthy as they might be. And now, for example, fruit is a healthy option. You'll see apples, satsumas, bananas as a healthy option added to those. We are also working really closely with official partners, healthy activities like Park Run, but also partners who will help us to be able to offer healthy options with regard and healthy basics with regard to the products that we supply. So, for example, I know that there is quite a well-known loo paper supplier. Oh, Kimberly-Clark it is, I think. That's helped us to be able to offer at really healthy and helpful prices. So we are looking at right across the range at making sure that we're investing appropriately in pricing, to ensure that we're recognising that even in spite of the cost of living increases, we want people to be able to have healthy, happier lives. So from a pricing perspective, we are actually being very active, but we're also being very active when it comes to partnering community activities such as the fridges through the Hubbub Community Fridge Network. And I think that so far we've actually managed to benefit 8 or 9 million meals as a consequence of that. And then there is support through the local pantries as well. So there's a lot of work going on in communities too. All I can say is that the board's perspective is that we ought to support the motion, and we recommend supporting the motion because it's very sound.
Thank you ever so much, Margaret, for that. I'm just checking. We've got some members are just putting questions or suggestions in the chat, and then we'll take questions from the floor. And we have had one in the chat, which I'll just read out if I open the right dialogue box, and it's from Jean Mary. It's a suggestion she's made. Q stores called convenience often have a disproportionate amount of pre-prepared meals, even where they are the only supermarket in the community. Please, can the plan consider this? So that's a suggestion, and what we could do perhaps is answer that as we go along, because I notice we've also now have got someone with the hand up, but I box is sorry, I cannot now see the hand that was up. Suzanne, is it? Sorry, apologies.
Hello.
There's a message that just appeared over everybody's face on my screen. So Suzanne, would you like to come in?
Yes. First of all, I'm really pleased that you're having this event because I just can't get to the AGM, and so thank you for that, and thank you for having fair trade tomatoes as part of your healthy option. It's been noticed and bought. What I wanted to ask about is, I hope you don't think this isn't the right subject, about health, and I'm gluten-free, and I run a local gluten-free group. And the co-op is good in that it has got quite a lot of things. Now, these are foods we eat for our health, not because we've got a fad or because we fancy something different, but it's our health. And the gluten-free flour, for instance, which is very basic, you know, we're not talking about fancy chocolate biscuits or anything, is £2.50 for a kilogram. And in Tesco, Sainsbury's, all the main supermarkets, it's £1.95. Now that's a big difference, and I wonder if you could look at your pricing of gluten-free products, looking at the basic ones, not the nice and fancy ones, the basic things like the bread. If you could look at that as part of your healthy eating. It's very, very unhealthy for us to eat something that's got gluten in it and be very ill.
Well, thank you for that, Suzanne. And I can point out that there's a very similar suggestion question in the chat. Can the co-op produce sugar-free and artificial sweetener-free drinks that are cheaper than things like Coca-Cola? So I think that's in keeping with your suggestion, your question there. All of a sudden, all the hands have gone out. What I should point out as well is that we are asking you to comment on the suggested question for the for each section, and if people want to, if they don't wish to raise a point in the meeting, please do put that in the chat as well. But this is, I hope I've not put you off. I said I would try and be strict about the time spent on questions, but not to limit the questions.
Sorry, John, can I just say that
please do, Margaret.
Suzanne and the others, that we do have members of the management team online who will take note of all of your really good points about gluten-free and artificial sweeteners and so on. I think that the first point that was made, there is already work being done on trying to make sure that where products are free from or reduced or light, that they're not penalised in price as against the standard product. So I know that work is going on, but as I say, there are people on the call who are taking note of these really helpful suggestions. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Margaret. And actually, I think we have Adele, who's one of our team, who could sort of take those comments just recently. You need to unmute yourself, Adele. Thank you. Could you just introduce yourself? I'm sorry, no one's given me your role, and I do apologise.
Just turn my camera. Is that right? Is that better?
Yeah,
right, I've
yeah.
turned mine off. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. We can't hear you just yet, but I will carry on and answer the question. Turn my own sound on. Okay, there you go. So I'm Adele Balmforth. I look after the propositions team at the Co-op, which includes the new product development team, the ranging team from a space perspective. Oh, it's always horrible when you can see your picture on the big screen. And I also look after the policy and sustainability team as well. So I think I can answer a few of those questions that have already popped up. Firstly, gluten-free, sugar-free, encouraging additional vegetables and healthier products in our new product development programme is absolutely on the plan. So there are a few things happening. Certainly, I think we already talked about the fact that on healthier products, sugar-free products, they should not be any more expensive than the standard product. That's already been raised. On gluten-free, it's slightly different because there's not always a benchmark product, but we will ensure that there is a match on that and it's a correct match. So if the comparison versus the Tesco one is a correct match, then that differential price shouldn't be there, because there are some guardrails there. So we'll have a look at that particular one. That I think it was Suzanne who mentioned that one. There is also a lot of work going on around inclusions of additional vegetables in meals, but particularly the question that was in the chat around prepared meals and ready meals. The development work that's going on for Co-op brand is kind of making, I think over time ready meals will probably become less and less popular anyway, and what we're seeing is a growth in kind of veg rich, added protein, very fresh natural ingredients that are coming through, taking the place of some of those more pre-prepped kind of meals in that you're used to, or kind of class as ready meals. So you'll start to see ready meals dial down, although they are still really important and people still want those products. And again, there is a little bit of myth busting around what's healthy and what's unhealthy, because there are variations of that. A baked beans on brown bread meal is very healthy, or a healthier option to a lot of people than an alternative of pizza, and so on and so forth. So we're very much about healthier choices and making it easier for people to choose healthier products through the products we develop, how we price them and how we promote them. So there is a lot of new product development coming on, which will I think tick a lot of those boxes. The other thing that's happening at the moment is relatively hot off the press, some work around produce and extending our daily essentials KVIs into a lot more produce lines. So I think there's another 40 odd prices coming in on that wave, and we're just working through the detail on that. So that will disproportionately push a whole load of member activity into produce. So hopefully that's another tick on how we are pushing the member prices on healthier choices.
Adele, will you explain what a KVI is to?
Oh, sorry, a known value item. So they're the kind of daily essentials, your bread, your milk, your eggs, the products that people have in their shopping basket regularly and tend to know the price of.
Thank you for that, Adele, and thank you, Stevie, for an excellent interjection there. Sometimes jargon can be confusing, and also I should say Stevie is another of our directors of the board, and sadly this is her second to last meeting, I believe. So I'm very grateful for all that she's done, and indeed even for that little interjection there as well. I still don't have any hands up. However, I have been trying to read the questions in the chat, and they are fulsome. A couple of them are almost like little essays, although they are asking some excellent questions. Is there anyone For instance, I don't want to sort of pull names out, but please don't speak if you don't wish to. But Cheryl Robinson, you put in a comment there, I think. Yeah, Cheryl, would you like to? Oh, good. I think you've been unmuted. Oh, you've been muted again. So just give someone a few minutes.
Can you hear me?
That's it. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you.
No, I put that comment down because I'm probably, like many people, trying to continue my weight loss journey. I've lost about 4.5 stone so far, and buying foods that are a bit more healthy do tend to have a lot of artificial sweeteners in them, which aren't particularly good for you. But also my granddaughter's recently become dairy free, and my daughter lives on quite a tight budget, and dairy free products, just like the gluten free ones, which Suzanne was saying, tend to be more pricey, and it would be nice to see a bit of turnaround on that as well, especially for people that are living on a budget, because, you know, I mean, they're great that there's lots more options now. Hands down to retailers for doing that. There's so many more options for people that are gluten-free, dairy-free, that have allergies and stuff. There's a lot more choice out there than what there used to be, but it is more pricey, I find, and I tend to go out and buy the things that she needs to give my daughter a hand, but not everybody has that option. So I think for people that are living on a tight budget, to be able to bring those prices down for people that are like in that position who can't have it for whatever reason, and they do get ill, shouldn't be penalised for that. That was basically my opinion.
Thank you, and that was really helpful. And I also note that Chris Holland, their comment has received a few hearts and thumbs up and everything, but particularly is talking about perhaps having diet recipes in magazines, and that is actually partly answering that underlying question that we suggested members think about price is important, but in addition to that, how could we support our member owners to make healthy choices conveniently? So that's very much about education and information, as well as actually having the products in store. So I don't know how people feel about that, or if they've got other suggestions of things that our society could do to improve that messaging. I'm now reading even more. Blimey, O'Reilly, you are putting a lot of comments in the chat. The good thing is it's my colleagues who will be picking all of those up and trying to answer them after the meeting. Well, if there are no more questions that people wish to put to the meeting, and we've certainly got a lot of really excellent comments there to work with, what I'd like to do then is to close that discussion for motion 1, and I'm just going to check that Patrice is available.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Patrice. Right, if you could, as a council member, introduce yourself, but also put the second motion, if you could introduce that for us, please. Thank you.
Yes, it'd be my pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to see everyone on the call today. And I remember being on this call last year. It was very exciting to have the opportunity to learn more about the motions. I was with you all as a member, and indeed a member owner, in fact, and that is what we all are. And so now I serve on the Members' Council. It's been my first year. It's been a great privilege, and I am from the Scotland area, but I represent all of our members. It's important to remember that. So thank you so much for attending today and for joining in this discussion about celebrating our co-op DNA. We are all member owners, and I hope that you are seeing that language more and more. I know I've certainly been seeing it in the language of the democracy that we build together around the AGM and various posters in store. So what does it mean to be a member owner? It means that our co-op is owned by the members, and our co-op exists to provide value for our members and for our communities, to do so in a sustainable way with a long-term future for our local communities and indeed the planet. So this motion about celebrating our co-op DNA is a charge for our board to continue that message, to propagate the message beyond where we are as a democracy here in this unit of highly engaged members, and to really, really push it out into the retail experience in store and various touch points that you'll come across, and indeed all of our members will come across. So I'm not sure if everyone has the language of the motion in front of them. If you like, John, I can share my screen and read it off. Okay, I'll just do that. Just one moment. Okay.
It's just posted in the chat.
Oh, okay. Perfect. In any case, if it is a little bit difficult for anybody to read, I will just briefly go through it. So this motion is our co-op DNA. We want the board to do much more to shout about what it means to be a member-owned business, which puts people before profit. Our members own our co-op, and we exist to create value for them, not to make money for shareholders. Being a member owner means that we are rewarded when we buy products and services from our co-op, and together with other co-op members, we make a real difference on the big social issues we care about. Because we are member owned, we can focus on doing the right thing and making decisions based on our values, which are for the long-term benefit for our members, our communities, and the environment. We want the board to do more to celebrate what it means to belong to our co-op and why being a member owner is special. So I know a member of the board will be here to kind of provide a response to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Patrice. And I'm now going to ask Margaret to come back in again with the board response. Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome. I'm delighted to be able to respond to this one because it is really dear to my heart. For newer members, I'll just sort of whiz back a little bit because I think this is important. We had a vision for our co-op that was termed cooperating for a fairer world, which was great, but what it seemed to do was to make us have a much more scattergun approach than was really efficient. We did an awful lot of things, and then it was really difficult to talk about all these brilliant things that we were doing, and nobody really knew what we were doing. And one of my colleagues described it as spray and pray. And I thought that was a brilliant description because that's literally, you know, we were just doing stuff and hoping that some of it would be recognised by people and that someone would read this incredibly mighty tome that we presented at the end of each year. All the brilliant things that we were doing. And we spent almost no money on telling anybody about anything. So I really understand what's at the essence of this motion. Our new vision, which has been basically promoted by our brilliant chief executive, Shireen, cooperating to give our member owners more value every day. Sounds wordy, but it really is brilliant because what it does is it puts the member owners at the center of everything. And then essentially it's saying that we will make sure that we give those member owners more value. It's literally that, and on a continuing basis. And so we decided that that would be in 3 buckets: economic, social, and ownership value. And the economic we started with because essentially the cost of living crisis that we were all facing was hurting people so much, and we heard this loud and long from our colleague members as well as from our general member owners. So we thought we would focus on price first. And we did that, and we invested an enormous amount in price to make us much more accessible and affordable. And as a consequence of that, we felt we ought really to shout about price and to tell people about the economic value that members were getting as a result of being members. So in autumn 2023, we invested 60% more in media to tell the story of the member owner economic value. So we really have started a program of telling people more about us. The amazing thing about that is we've seen membership grow dramatically. And of course, the greater the membership, the more we can do efficiently, the better value we can give back to our members. So in telling people more about the price benefits, we've actually benefited the whole concept of membership itself. So that was sort of stage one, if you like. Then it came to social value and economic value. Social value is actually telling our member owners about what we're doing in the community and about how we can impact on what's happening in the community. And member value is essentially, how do we listen to you, so that we move from the spray and pray to saying to you as members, what's important to you, what would you like us to do, where is the greatest impact, let's do that. And so we harness the influence that we hear through Counsel, through the democracy, and through events such as Join In, and we bring all those together to make sure that we are actually refining what we do, so that we're working with major charities like Bernardo's, for example, to help young people, which is what we'd heard our members wanting us to do, through our Co-op Foundation, doing really vital work, and through the Royal Foundation, which focuses a lot on mental health, as you know, which again, our members have told us is very important to them. We know we're stronger together, we know we're stronger cooperatively, so we're also working with the wider cooperative movement. And that's allowing us to do major campaigns, which is really fantastically helpful for getting our voice out there. And essentially, we've launched a brilliant marketing campaign, and you will see more of this later on this year to explain exactly what we're doing and what the co-op difference is, all of us working together and achieving more as a consequence. So I think really it's a question of, it's begun, we hear what you're saying, and we're on that pathway, and watch this space. And so the board really heartily recommends and supports the motion. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Margaret. That was lovely, and a lovely reply. We have. I'm going to introduce the question and debate, but I just want to check because our society secretary is a very important person, and I don't mean that sarcastically. It genuinely is an important person, because they are responsible for a lot of the way that the society is run. So I'm just wondering if Dominic would like to come in on that. I hope I haven't just thrown you a surprise.
Not at all, not at all. And thank you, John, for that interesting leading. Yes, I'm Dom Kendal-Ward, Group Secretary, and I'm absolutely ecstatic that this motion has been put forward, because it is absolutely at the core of what we need to be and how we need to be. I think if co-ops are not relevant right now, when will they ever be? But is the understanding of what a cooperative really is understood? And, you know, we're not the only ones who need to be shouting about this. Everybody across the movement needs to be, but clearly we need to play our part. We need to be telling people why we're different. In order to do that, we need to understand what it is that actually people out there care about, both our current members, why they are members and why they're engaged, but also the people who aren't. And for the people who aren't in particular, I think it's really critical that we get our language right, because if we start talking in the words of cooperation and you haven't ever been involved in the movement, you're not going to get it. You need to be talking about things like the ability to influence, the belonging, the trust, the things which go with what we are as a movement, what we are as an organisation. But most importantly, we also need to listen. So as much as anything, and I'm hoping people won't be shy, you know, there are plenty of people here who I'm sure have joined because they do care about our co-op and because they actually do feel part of something. What is it for you that actually makes us different? Because anybody can say they've got great products, anybody can say that they do things which deliver social value. What is it about our co-op that you feel makes us different, so that we can tap that and then bring that back into our messaging to bring more people in? So that's all I was going to say on it. Hopefully people will be able to give their views as well, because we need to listen as much, if not more, than we need to tell what the answer is to this one.
Well, thank you for that, Dom, and a very good answer, as I expected. I'm going to just take a little second because we did get a question earlier on about what is Senate, And I understand that quite a few people didn't understand. And when I said that I'm a member of the Senate is made up of 15 of the council members, and they meet around about 4 or 5 times a year to discuss in detail the way that the council itself is run, to help and assist in creating the meetings that the council meets for and why. And also to speak directly to the board and the executive in a smaller group, so that it's more effective. I have to say, as a Senate member, it can sometimes be quite embarrassing to say to people that you're a Senate member, especially if you go on holiday to Rome and actually go to the forum where the Roman Senate used to meet, and that was a highlight of my life, but also quite embarrassing because I didn't particularly like what the Senate in Roman times actually did, bearing in mind what they did. But that hopefully explains in some way what the Senate does. And by the way, we are elected by the council to be on the Senate. Now, if we can now, and gosh, we're absolutely spot on time now. So if I could put that question to members as we go into a discussion that was suggested to just sort of help with the theme of this particular area. And the question is, what does it mean to be member owned as a business? Did you know that we were member owned? How do you think we can explain it to our members? And I've also been asked, and I think quite sensibly, I've been asked to ask the meeting if the language that we use is good, is understandable, and it's been put, for instance, should we scrap the term member owner, as most customers don't understand it, and that could be one of the areas that we could look at, and that you as members could make suggestions for things that we could or should be doing. So I'm now going to go back to the big screen because I have to go off to other ones. I've got Carol Skye with her hand up. Please do put hands up. This is a very, very important area. Carol.
Hi, I love being a member of the Co-op, and I'm also a member pioneer. So my role within Co-op is to support communities and really help that social value to move along. I found during a recent join-in session that the majority of people I spoke to had no clue about being a member owner. They didn't understand that term. They didn't know that they owned the Co-op, and they also had a poor idea of how much social value and community support that we do. And a lot of them forget their card. So, and especially men, because it's the ladies that seem to carry the cards. And I've suggested to a lot of men that they could also have a card and shop more, you know, with better benefits at the Co-op. But I'm one of the people that feels that the terminology of member owners should be scrapped. And I also would like to say, much as a lot of money obviously went into the campaigning for member prices, I personally found it quite insulting to people that they were described as a donut if they didn't know what we were telling them. Because to me, that sounds quite, you know, you're thick if you don't know about this. So I personally took affront to that particular advertising campaign. But I do love the work I do. I love supporting the Co-op, and I love getting out there and really interacting with my local communities. So thank you for that.
No, thank you, Carol. And just to let some members in this event, a member pioneer is our front and centre page really for the society. They are people who are employed by the society to engage with the community, with our members, and to actually promote the Co-op values and principles in the areas. So thank you, Carol, for that, as well as your comments. Can I ask Suzanne Fletcher, if you would. There you go, you're unmuted.
Yeah, thanks. Yes. First of all, I think that member owner is a very uncomplicated language that most people could understand before we get into sort of words that might mean more complicated. So I'm happy with that. And the other thing is, it's just been mentioned about having a card. I have difficulty with my hands, and it's sometimes difficult to fish it out of my purse. But the person on the till at our local co-op was so kind that she showed me how to use the app. Because I'm not that bright at such things, so now I can just use the app because she was so kind and nice, and I felt able to ask. So that's just a bit of feedback for you on nice staff that you've got. One of the things that I like about the co-op is the fair trade, because it's better than anywhere else. The only other place you can get the sugar is Sainsbury's, and so we get our sugar from there, or we get our bananas, and you've got other things as well. But my beef is, and perhaps it's two things, is this: you could tell me how to make our voice known as a member owner, as it were, if we've got an issue. I don't know quite who I'd write to and how I'd write. I'd do it by email. I don't know how I'd do that. Now, maybe I could do a lot of research and find it out, but it would be nice if it was easier for me to do that. I have a thing about the boxed chocolates, boxed chocolate biscuits, the triple choc cookies, and the ones with the chocolate chips in. And our co-op in Eaglescliffe was actually launched this in 2017, that every co-op branded product that had cocoa in it was fair trade cocoa. And there is the cocoa life marking on some of the fresh goods that have got it in, but it's not on the boxes. And we've tried over the years to say, why can't it be marked on the boxes? And it's important to you as the co-op because it's about sales, because you can't buy fair trade biscuits anywhere else. And I talk a lot to voluntary groups, small businesses, and I'm saying, you know, you need to use fair trade tea, fair trade coffee, fair trade sugar, and they want fair trade biscuits. And the only place you can get them is the co-op. And it's a convoluted explanation. I've got a paper I've done on it that says, yes, well, it is fair trade cocoa, but it doesn't say it is, but believe me, it is. So why can't you actually make more of what you do well?
Oh, thank you for that, Suzanne, and that's a wonderful thing, all wrapped up. I like you, I also do a lot of work for fair trade, and I know that the problem with biscuits and putting the fair trade logo on can sometimes just be the percentage of amount of fair trade products in the packet, so it can sometimes be a problem. It might say it in really tiny writing somewhere on the in the ingredients, but thank you for that, and thank you for those comments. I have actually got a comment in the chat that I'm just going to read out. It's come from Sean. Perhaps she doesn't wish to ask the question thing, but I think it is a good comment. I've always viewed the co-op as the supermarket chain with values and ethics. Please, can these be given priority again? So that's a good statement that perhaps we're not doing enough to promote that. I can't see anyone's hand up. I'm going to be a little bit naughty because someone's put in a comment about growing up in the northeast in the chat with a vast Riop and Silksworth setup. Now, I live in Stafford and have done for 40 odd years, but I grew up right next to Riop and Silksworth, and I think I actually might be of a similar age to this person because I remember the Silksworth co-op, and also there was a co-op dairy there. But Christine has mentioned the Women's Cooperative Society, which I suspect was the Cooperative Women's Guild. So I have to say that hands out across the airways to Christine. Hello to a fellow Sunderland supporter, because you can't possibly be growing up in that area unless you are a Sunderland supporter. So thanks for that comment, but also thanks, you've taken me back a bit. We did have a question as well from I think it might be Sue, I've only recently understood about member owners. I think it's brilliant, and I think given the recent examples of fat cats sucking profits elsewhere, we should really emphasise this. It's really refreshing. Thank you for that comment, and also thank you for a difficult sentence to read out. But I believe that Scott Montgomery has got his hand up. Hi, Scott.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you. I just thought I'd make a brief point. Like many on the call, I understand the term of being a member, and also making it a little more clearer with member owner. But I'm someone who, I mean, we've met several times now, John. I'm someone who gets involved with co-ops and cooperation, and I think it's great when you have that sort of involvement with the movement, but it can be quite tricky for members who really haven't engaged that much. So perhaps the term member might actually be slightly more outdated, and perhaps we should just scrap that part and maybe just call people co-owners, for example. It highlights the cooperation, but it also shows that each member would co-own the society together.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, and yes, Patrick, we Scott, sorry, we do speak, I think, quite a bit on Twitter as well, I think. Patrice.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say I think all these points are really excellent, because we do have a challenge. We have to differentiate the value of being a cooperator, of being an owner, of being a member, because you can go to any supermarket or many retail stores, even factory outlet next door to our co-op, and they have member prices. And so it's how do you get across the differentiation of just being, I happen to have the app, I happen to have subscribed to this, versus there's something more to this. And it isn't just profit, it is purpose. So I think all the points everybody's raising are really, really good, because the competition to get this message right is stiff. And it's so important that we do that. And that I think we do this incrementally. So it's not just some big, long, like we're taking incremental steps, as Margaret and others have highlighted. And I think it's fantastic. The economic piece is so essential towards that. And then the rest of the components of the member ownership pie, so to speak, fall in line once we get the pricing, right, where the market needs to see that and to understand it. But thank you so much to everybody for your points.
Yeah, thank you, Patrice. Thank you for pointing that out. Oh, I love that. A comment there. I love being a cooperator. It's a vibe. Whoever's in our corporate affairs should copy that and use it. That's brilliant. I'm not seeing any more hands, and I'm not seeing any more comments. So what I'd like to do, although we're running nicely along on time, is go to an equally important motion, our third motion. And can I see Lee?
Hello, John.
Oh, hi, Lee. How are you, by the way? I don't feel as if I've seen you for a while. Yeah. Would you like to introduce this very important motion, please? Thank you.
I certainly will. Hi, everybody. I will apologise if it's not as engaging as it should be. For some reason, my camera has decided to stop working, so I'll try and be as engaging as possible. Okay, so as John said, this really important motion around colleague safety and retail crime. There's been lots of feedback, conversation, debate, and great work from the business in terms of spearheading this issue. As we very well know, there's lots of poor examples in our stores around colleague safety, where they're experiencing crime. So just to summarise what's been shared, I presume everybody's looked at the notes regarding this. Just to quickly summarise, so council members have listened to the concerns of co-op members. and the unacceptable rise in attacks to shop workers. So Co-op members have campaigned for a number of years to change the law to make attacks on shop workers, and we finally succeeded last month with the government confirming that will be a standalone offence in the future. So most retail crime is seen in stores as organised crime and looting, sophisticated and organised by gangs. Although it's great that we've been successful campaigning the change to the law to prosecute offenders, we think as council these incidents shouldn't be happening in the first instance, and we should be looking at reducing these experiences from colleagues and these awful incidents. So council obviously welcomes the great work that's been done by the business and board taking on board these comments, particularly around the work that Paul Gerrard's been doing with his team. So just to give a little bit of a summary background from my perspective and my background without hopefully rambling on. So my name's Lee and I'm a store manager. Currently in a store which is experiencing retail crime, antisocial behaviour and threatening behaviour towards colleagues. So for me, it's something that I experience daily. Just to give you an example, last week we actually had 2 999 calls. That just gives you a little indication of the experiences from in one store. So obviously I know a lot of you, depending on what your background is, may not get that first-hand experience from being there or know what it's like to be in that situation. But the thing about retail crime is we know that we're not going to solve the issue because it's a societal issue, but it's the impact and the effect it has on a colleague. Whilst we look at trying to correct things operationally, there's another side of that, and that's the obviously the welfare and the well-being of that colleague, which can really have an effect on how they perform in store, and obviously that affects how the store performs. So it was just a little bit of a background from my sort of experience and from my perception, and just a summary then of what council has been debating about and pushing over the last few years. Hope that's okay, John.
No, thank you, Lee. And for those, it's a shame the camera's not on. Lee is genuinely a tall, dark, handsome chap. So I think maybe he was sparing the blushes of the rest of us blokes. Margaret, could I ask, please, for you to let us know what the board's response is? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, the essence of the motion is that we should have a sustainable response to the crime that's being faced by our colleagues. So, in other words, we shouldn't just be trying to get the police to respond at the point when the offence has been committed. We should be, because of who we are as a co-op and our involvement within the community, trying to work at the front end. And you won't be surprised to know that the board has an enormous amount of sympathy with that. So what are our sustainable responses? Well, we've been working, as you know, historically on campaigning, and Paul Gerrard, as was mentioned by the handsome Lee, has been really at the forefront of an incredibly brilliant campaign to upgrade the focus, because for far too long retail crime has been downgraded, and it's been downgraded for decades, and so it's become part of the DNA of society that it's not that important. And we recognize that it was important, and it is the fact that it was so downgraded that even where we had the evidence through cameras within shops, we couldn't get the police to prosecute. So the work that our colleagues led by Paul and other retail colleagues throughout the retail industry has been incredibly valuable in getting, first of all, the Scottish government, the Scottish Parliament, to pass a bill that made this a specific offence, and then It took another year. Heaven knows why it took the rest of the UK governments didn't see the point straight away, but it took another year of work, working cooperatively with others to get the same sort of focus until we got the criminal justice bill became an act about, I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago, which is really cause for celebration. But as you say quite rightly, Lee, that's all at the end at which the crime has been perpetrated. But what it does do is it, first of all, it elevates the offence in the minds of people and in the minds, therefore, of the police as well. And so that our data gathering can help to promote more prosecution. So that's one thing. Then we also work within communities as well. And we've been doing this for some time through, for example, partnering with groups like the Peer Action Group Collective, which is a group of young people who are actually working within communities on other young people who've been impacted by violence. And we've been supportive of them. We're working with some of the employment advisory groups for prisons to help to break that cycle of people going into prison, coming out, finding they have no hope and going back into the criminal lifestyle by helping them into employment. We have numbers of positive interventions through all the various community activities that we carry out with partners to help people to find better ways of just finding opportunities for the young and for people who are in difficult situations in terms of social mobility, because it's the lack of social mobility that puts people on that pathway. So if we can help them to break out of that more the better. And importantly, and this actually picks up on one of the comments that was made earlier on about schools. We have 45 academy schools, co-op academy schools. So that means that right at the front end, when we're dealing with young people, very young people, there are people being brought up learning in the context of co-op principles, which is incredibly powerful. And the number of our co-op schools has grown over time, and the board continues to be supportive of that. So there are numbers of ways in which we have interventions that really help to just work at that front end. And so, frankly, the board heartily recommends supporting the motion, and I hope you vote for it.
Thank you, as ever, Margaret. It is a very difficult subject sometimes to talk, and some of the comments that have been coming out already. For instance, there's one saying it must be very upsetting for staff, but I really like the fact that that member has said, how can we let staff know that we do feel for them when they witness such crimes, and the customers, members cannot do anything about it. I'm very sorry to say that only just recently in my area, a colleague was attacked with petrol, and the criminal threatened her with a lighter, and that sort of thing is inexcusable, and does bring it home to the need for us to do something about it, both in terms of reducing crime, but also getting legislation to support and stop this. I'm going to ask someone who has done possibly more than anyone else, or at least has certainly been at the forefront of both the cooperative group, the cooperative movement, and in fact the whole retail sector's response. So I'm going to ask Paul Gerrard to come in, and I'll let him introduce himself in terms of his role and why he can speak so confidently about this.
Thank you, John. I won't mention the fact that I didn't get a epithet that I was handsome and all that business, but I'll just.
I was saving that till the end.
John, I'll just move on. I'll just move on.
Support the wrong team.
Good evening, fellow cooperators. I'm Paul Gerrard. I'm Campaigns Public Affairs and Board Secretariat Director at the Co-op Group. And one of the things that we've been working on within the Campaigns Public Affairs and Board Secretariat team is the campaign on retail crime. And I think it is fair to say that we have taken an issue that was not a political and parliamentary issue 8 years ago when we started campaigning, and made it into an issue now. Sorry, 6 years ago when we started campaigning. And I think it is true that it's the cooperative movement, particularly, but also especially the cooperative group, that has very much led the conversation that has turned retail crime from being something that didn't matter to being something that does matter. And I think what we've achieved in the last 9 months, when we've seen crime move from opportunistic crime to quite organised crime, and that's what's behind a 44% rise in crime. I think we've done that particularly well, and again, I think we've done that as a movement. I think what's interesting for me, John, is that we've won the conversation that says the police have got to turn up. Right? I'm a former law enforcement officer. I've got no interest in slagging off the police. We've won the argument that says you've got to turn up. This is serious. People are getting hurt. Communities are getting hurt. You've got to turn up. We've won that argument. The police committed in October to attending more often, particularly where there's violence or someone's detained, there's evidence to collect. We've won that argument, and we've seen the beginnings of an improvement in police attendance rate. So it's great that the police are turning up more. They need to carry on turning up more, and they need to turn up even more. But actually, that now brings us to the question, so what you're actually seeing here is the same people, often prolific offenders, often with vulnerability. It could be substance abuse, it could be mental health, it could be linked to gangs. Many of the people who are behind the large-scale theft that we see and the violence behind it are often have got vulnerabilities. And we have a choice. We can send people to prison, but we know that in general, short sentences do not work. I make no apologies for saying if someone attacks one of my colleagues and hurts them, I want them to do a custodial sentencing. That's going to help. But the most important thing for us is that we stop the cycle of reoffending. Because all that happens often when on a short sentence is people get sent to prison. They might do 8-10 weeks. During that time, they'll lose the job, they might lose the home, they might lose relationships. They'll come out, nothing's changed for them beyond they'll carry on doing what they're doing. And we need to find ways that mixes both custodial sentence where it is appropriate, and then standalone sentences will help that, but also things like rehabilitation, like education and training, like restorative justice. I see someone in there, saying, work in the store to work off the crime they've done, community sentencing. There's a range of things that you can do. And the heart of that is how you stop reoffending. Because otherwise we're on a hamster wheel. And all that means is that colleagues will get short bits of respite when people are inside. When they come out, it'll start all over again. So I think what's really powerful about the motion the council put forward is it takes us beyond let's protect colleagues. Absolutely, it's our number one priority. And we've been very successful in getting the police to take it seriously, Parliament to take it seriously. Now let's get into the conversation that as a community retailer with stores in every postcode in this country, with great relationships in communities, how can we start to work with groups in communities, statutory authorities, to start to break the same cycle of reoffending? Because if we can break the cycle of reoffending, our colleagues will be safer, full stop. And that's why I think this motion is so important. And if we can crack this, then we're going to see safer colleagues on safe communities. Thanks, John.
No, thank you, Paul. And I'm not exaggerating. Paul has spent an enormous amount of time on this and effort encouraging other retail organisations, as well as obviously the work, particularly with the Co-op. And I'd have to say that all three speakers, Lee, Margaret and Paul, have exampled really the Co-op difference. Most other places, most other retailers would just be talking about stop the crime, stop the offenders. We're talking about rehabilitation. We're talking about working in communities, working to make life better, basically, which is what the Rochdale Pioneers actually first started with. So we're showing our cooperative measures. I really love some of the comments in the chat. I'll just remind of the question, although in a sense I'd have to say the comments go a long way to answering that. How can we make sure that the cycle of reoffending is broken, and what interventions should we champion as a co-op to do so? So I'd love it if people would like to ask a question to the meeting, or they can put it in chat and I'll read those out. But particularly if you have other things that you think have not been covered as suggestions. And thank you, Pete. You've got your hand up. I can't see you on the screen, actually. That's a bit weird. Usually the person putting the hand up pops up. But Pete, if you could like to ask your question or your comment. Is it another Lee Noble? We do not have the camera working. Oh, I think someone will unmute you, Pete.
Oh, can you see me now?
Okay, we can and hear you. Lovely, thank you.
I'm like the one of the previous contributors. I'm also a membership pioneer in the Birmingham area, and this is a little bit of a ray of hope for us. One of the things I'm working in the community with at the moment is that there is a Royal Horticultural Society program at the moment, working with people who are incarcerated in prison, who are actually growing from seed plug plants. And I've been working out in the community gardens, and in June we should be planting those, monitoring what's happening to them, growing food for the local community, and all the time we will be sending the information and back to how we're doing with this to people who probably haven't got any hope of what they're doing in prison, to give them a little bit of rehabilitation of what they can actually do and contribute to society. So them are the sort of things which I think is going to be really, really beneficial to us and the community. Thank you.
No, thank you, Pete, for raising that. And I'd have to mention the fact that you work, and I remember pioneer in Birmingham. It's a brill city, but also our sister co-op, the Central England. I know that they also do some work with in the sense of reoffending people, and some of those people have ended up working in the stores. So it is something that is being done and done by co-ops. There's a lot of comments, and they're all well, I know that my colleagues are going to be taking them in detail, but I think one suggestion that's been made in the comment from Kay is work with the crime commissioners more closely to find solutions to the issue on a local basis. Use AI to report thefts automatically to the police, place and time of occurrence with photos of offenders. The police have the powers to take action, and where they don't take action, ask for the rationale as why they are not tackling the crime. Make it known that when a crime occurs in store, we report all incidents to the police, even if no action ensues. Allow repeat offenders to work in store to pay off their theft. That last suggestion is an interesting one, because technically that would be that sort of rehabilitation. Particularly important question though, or suggestion. We have the elections in, I should know this, working for a political organisation, next week, but there's still chance. 2 weeks. Thank you, Paul. He's clever at me. There is an opportunity to ask those candidates who are standing for the police and crime commissioners all over the country, and there's an opportunity to ask. I do know, and to give credit not just to a party that I support, but I know that some police and crime commissioner candidates have been visiting stores and talking to colleagues, to staff in those stores about this particular issue. But certainly I would encourage you to ask the question of what responses those candidates would do. I think there's a question there from Chris Holland, which may be worth probably someone replying directly to them. What is the crime rate for self-scan tills in the co-op for shoplifting crime? Because I don't know, and it may be that no one on this call does, but perhaps that's something we could pass to a colleague. And I like the comment. I like the bit about restorative justice. It can be effective and also within the cooperative values. Again, some of these, please, my colleagues, photocopy these and start using them in other places, because there's some lovely comments as well as some fantastic questions. Is there anyone who, Paul, if you come back, that'd be lovely.
Just to answer a couple of questions. I've put in the chat, if you'd like to write to your PCC, the election's on Thursday. If you'd like to write to your PCC, you still have time. I've put in the link there, in the chat, a link to the Co-op Party website. Click on it, you'll find, just put your postcode and your name. It'll bring up an automatic email that you can amend and as you see fit, and it will go straight to your PCC candidates. So please do click on that link and write to your PCC. We've already had literally thousands of letters have gone to PCCs already. Please do that again. Just in terms of, I think someone's putting about body-worn cameras. We were the first major retail to use body-worn cameras. We have them in all of our high-risk stores, and there's a rollout putting them all over. They're very effective, both in terms of for evidential purposes, but they're also very effective because often they will change behaviour. If someone's getting abusive and threatening, when they see that little light goes on, it just checks them a second. Not for everybody, some people. So body-worn cameras are in there. Now, we use facial recognition technology after the event. So when somebody's in, we will get the images from the CCTV, the body-worn cameras, give them to police, and they will run it through the PNC. We don't use AI to profile people when they come in stores. Other co-ops do. Southern Co-op, for example, do that. It's not a thing that we've wanted to do. But I guess what I would say is, I think the point about rehabilitation is hugely important. There's an organisation called Offender to Rehab. Do Google it. We've supported it. Central England have supported it. They were at the Co-ops Retail Conference very recently. What they do is quite remarkable because it takes people who have, one lady I can think of was 20 years a chain addict from being 15. She funded that by stealing from shops and assaulting shop workers if they got in the way. When she eventually got rehab, thanks to the work of the Offender to Rehab program, which we does do Central England to a degree, what happened? She's never offended since. She hasn't offended for 5 years. She's clean for 5 years, and she's now a mentor as a support centre. These people have made bad choices and done bad things, but if you give them the support, very often, and Caroline, that lady is a great example, they can turn their lives around and become a really productive member of society who we'd love to have in our stores as one of our members. Thanks, John.
No, thank you, Paul. And again, the stories of people who have turned things around are quite remarkable, and I've been privileged at 2 different events to hear from people who have done exactly that, and it is a fantastic thing. I like the comment from Christine and her friend that thought that some sort of community service term should be part of the education system that would teach manners, respect, stop littering. And certainly education is very important here. And we could look at what the co-op can do to influence education and to perhaps bring in some of the co-op values and principles. So whilst I'm still looking to see if anybody wishes to speak rather than put in chat, we have got there. I think I might be reading an answer to an earlier question there from Kay, because I don't know what inspired the "Do you wish to stop the violence against colleagues? AI is just another tool." So I'm not sure if that's come from a previous question. And again, thank you, Paul has put the detail in the chat of the Offender to Rehab, and it is a remarkable organisation, and the work that they do is pretty tremendous. Well, I'm loath to try and force people to speak, but are there any questions about the AGM itself? Is anyone not sure of the time and the date? Because I know that everybody gets an email, but not everybody looks at their email. So it could be. It's going to be in Manchester. It's going to be, I think, I'll just go back to my original notes. On Saturday, the 18th of May, and it's mostly in the morning, but you do need to register. So if you haven't already registered and you do want to go, please do register. And you can do that either directly through the email that you should have received, or go online and sign in as a member. Oh, and there you go. Thank you, Yasmin. You don't know this. I might look really good here, but in truth, there's about 256 people in Secretariat in Manchester, all writing and sending me messages to keep me online. But there is a message there. Just a reminder, voting for motions closes on the 13th of May, midday. And of course, when I mistakenly said the elections are next week, I was, of course, thinking cooperative elections in my head, none of this political nonsense. And I see there, Scott, you're planning to attend in person. That's really good. Oh, now, Carol, if you've tried unsuccessfully to vote, do get in touch. We do have colleagues who can help you vote. So that's quite important. I'm going to start to wrap up, and one of the things that I'm going to do, and I'm not going to try and be too effusive, but I would like to thank Stevie Spring. Stevie is one of our board directors. She doesn't mind me using the term retiring from the board, but only because of our governance, nothing to do with age or anything like that. Stevie has supported the council and the work that the council does for as long as I can remember that I've been on council. She has been challenging and she has questioned us as much as we have questioned her, but that's only right and proper. I will miss her. I don't know if the people who are coming in will be anything like as good. I'm saying this, there's nobody that's coming on, or that I'm not, I don't want to have a little bit of expense to them, but I can see other comment there from Paul. So I would like, this is her penultimate member event, and I would just like to personally thank Stevie for all the work that she's done for the group and for the co-op. Now that last bit was really just to see if there were any questions that anybody. Oh, Stevie. Hello, you've just popped up.
I popped up, John, having been in the background listening attentively, partly to say thank you for embarrassing me.
It's my job.
I wasn't expecting that. Partly to say, you know, these are fantastic opportunities to hear from member owners. I quite liked the co-owner idea that came up. I can't remember who it was who didn't like the donut idea, but the one thing that I will say on that, I didn't particularly love it, but what it did have was massive cut through. So what that means is we didn't spend very much money on it and a lot of people noticed it. So I think as a very simple sledgehammer to say, why wouldn't you become a member and benefit from member choices, it did quite a good job on that. And I think one of the things that we all have to do, from the board, from the council, from the exec, from all the member pioneers and all the member owners, is bring people into the cooperative movement and then teach them what it's all about. So bringing them in through member benefits is just the first stage of that journey. And I think what we have on this call, obviously, is preaching to the converted, or, you know, singing with the choir, because obviously we are all committed cooperators. But I think there is still a job to be done to talk to a broader audience about why we are cooperators, what we get out of it, and the difference that we can make to our communities, to society, and indeed, if it's not too big a claim, to the world. We've done a lot of talking about fair trade today. So in the same way that we're not just about moving retail crime from the co-op shop to the Sainsbury's down the road, because that doesn't solve the problem, it just moves it. You know, equally, we're into fair trade and making a difference across the way we do business, because it is a better way of doing business. And I have absolutely loved my 9 years of serving on the co-op. And if it makes any difference, John, I am going on to chair another membership organisation that is fighting to get the best deals for its members. So I think that that's right and proper. But anyway, thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you very much for having me.
Not at all, thank you, and I hope you do as well in that membership organisation as well. You've actually reminded me as well the responsibilities. I've noticed some of the comments in the chat about member voting, and thank you to Yasmin and Zuna for giving our members their information about how you can vote and how you qualify. I often have a conversation with people who say, oh yes, I'm a member of the co-op, but oh, I couldn't vote, and I don't know why. And I would explain to them, you have to have spent £250 or spent some money on co-op insurance, for instance, or co-op funeral in order to qualify. But I always also say it has to be in the year before you vote. So if someone hasn't got that member spend for this year voting, it would be last year that they didn't spend the money in the co-op. So if anyone on this call, and as a member, by the way, you're entitled to come to these events even if you've only just got your £1 share. But if you wish to vote next year, you need to spend upwards of £250 in one of our stores, or all right, I've got a little quick question there, or you have to take out co-op insurance, and there are some very good deals depending on weirdly what time of the year you claim, what time of the year, sorry, that you take it out. So please do that, and if you've got any questions about voting or membership, please get in touch either with the society, the members page, or with your local council member, because we can be you can now get in touch with us through Secretariat. Someone has I believe asked a question, who is it that's behind me? These are the Rochdale Pioneers. Now, it's a photograph of the Rochdale Pioneers. It's not the, and it was taken about 30 odd years after 1844. I think it was around about 1875 or something like that. And they do look a little bit old on this photograph. It may surprise you to know that most of the Rochdale Pioneers, when they opened the store, were all under 30. They were very young. One was even 19. So this image, sadly, which I do love, but which sadly makes it look as if all the first creators of the modern co-op were all dead old. They weren't. This was taken. They didn't take photographs in 1844. So I have that because it reminds me, as indeed I do have the little light box so that I don't forget what meeting I'm in. I was filling there to see if there were any more questions about that. The lack of hands suggests that you all want to have your tea. I'm about to go and have a Cornish pasty, actually. So I'm going to say that's a wrap. Thank you very, very much for attending. And I'll just check. There's nothing else in the chat. So I'm going to say good night to everybody. I hope to see some of you at the AGM or online at the AGM, and perhaps hopefully if it is the case that you've got further questions, do please get in touch with the Society and enjoy May.